thank you for taking your time out to listen to my thoughts based on my experience, based on my the work that we've done. I thought it's good to share some of what has worked for us, especially in the context of so many changes going around us. It really is important that we share our knowledge, we share our experience, and we learn from each other. We depend on each other, and we benefit from each other. So I'm very happy and very thankful, Hiranmai, for having given me this opportunity. The topic per se, right? This is a topic, fostering innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship, an ecosystem for these things in academia. That's the topic I wanted to talk about. Essentially, what I would look at is three parts to it. One, why? Why should we do this this work inside academia? Why? And I will try to talk in terms of the opportunity, right? What is the opportunity? Why we should do this? Second, I will touch upon what is the strategy or the how, right? I may not have much time for what, because it's a 40-minute, 45-minute webinar, so I may not be able to get so much into the what, but that is something which we will be absolutely be happy to do. Following the webinar, if some of you wanted to get in touch with us, we'll be happy to have further conversations, whether it's educators, whether it's administrators of institutions, whether it's students. Please feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to discuss more about the what. So the why and the how of this topic, right, is what I'm going to be talking about in this webinar, right? So why? Now, this question, why, right? Naturally, this question is very important. Before we get into anything, before we do something, we learn something, it's always very important why we're doing it. What is the purpose? What's the vision? What's the, what's the goal, right? All of those things, it's very important for us to understand why. But before I get so much into why, what has started to matter even more is the question, why not? And if you look at what has happened in our lives in the last 2 to 3 months, a lot of these why not questions have become much more important, right? So why not spend time at home and not go to malls? And we find that we can live a very happy life. Why not cook at home and eat at home and not go to restaurants and not order food on Swiggy? We can lead a healthy life. We've seen that it works in the last 2-3 months. Why not work from home? Why not work from anywhere? Why not work from remote? And why do we have to go to work every single day? Why not keep roads empty? Why not keep classrooms empty? Why not engage with students on an online learning platform, right? So there is no end to this why not. And if you really look at it, not so long ago, just 2 months ago, a lot of these were looked at as why. Why do we have to not do these things, right? Why, right? But now we're in the world of why not. So that is something which I thought is very important for us to set the context with, right? We are now collectively more capable, and we're now habituated to asking the why not questions as opposed to the why questions. Now let me get into the particular context of the academic world, particularly the higher technical education ecosystem, those institutions which are in higher technical education, science, technology, engineering, research, those institutions. We've always been used to asking why, right? So why challenge conventional ways? Why, look at bringing in change when things are okay? So the very famous American slang, fix it. Why fix if it ain't broken, right? Why question the status quo? Why should we change habits? This system has worked for us very well. It has served us very well. It's going okay. So why keep rocking the boat? And more importantly, why try new things, right? But just as we have discovered in the last 2-3 months, and I'm sure all of those educators, students, academic administrators who are on this webinar, in the past 2 months, 3 months, we've all been pushed, shoved, right, without any excuse, to start asking why not? Why not challenge conventional ways? Who told that classrooms cannot happen online? Who told students cannot learn if they can, learn from content digitally delivered on their smartphones, right? So a lot of those why not have clearly opened our eyes when it comes to the academic context, right? So I believe that this is a very important opportunity. The times that we are in is a very important opportunity, and which is why usually in management lingo they say never miss a crisis, because a crisis is a very important time, because it brings out the best in us when we are facing adverse, drastic conditions. It brings out the best in us. So when we are at our best, when we are managing a crisis, when we are at our best, we are thinking at our best, we are acting at our best, we are doing at our best, which is always needed when we have to think about change, when we have to do different things, when we have to do innovative things, right? So the opportunity now, the first dimension of this opportunity is we are ready to ask the question, why not, right? Right. Next, look at what COVID-19 has done to us. One, it came in such a drastic, in such a ferocity that we barely had time to even think about what to do. We just had to act on our feet. And it has exposed many of our gaps, many of our weaknesses, which for a very long time we've assumed that all is hunky-dory. Nothing have to be worried about. We are good, we're safe, right? We're comfortable. But the last 3 months, imagine the numbers of problems that have been exposed, whether it's related to access to basic everyday life and work and groceries and all of those very basic things in life that we have assumed as givens have now become a challenge, right? So there are lots of gaps, weaknesses which have been exposed. Secondly, we've been pushed to go back to basics, right? And my colleague was telling me that today, if you have to buy a smartphone, the only reason why you're looking at a smartphone is because you want to install the Arogya Setu app. Now imagine telling that 2-3 months back, that the reason why somebody is going to buy a smartphone, let's say some low to middle income person is wanting to upgrade from a feature phone to a smartphone, and the reason why he wants to do that is because he wants to install a healthcare app. That was just unimaginable, right? Nobody would have even thought that somebody would do that for installing a healthcare app, right? But today, well, you know what? Health is more important, right? We are not today worried about getting food delivered via Swiggy, going to fancy restaurants today, or buying luxurious goods and discretion spending on consumer electronics on let's say Flipkart or on Amazon. Today we are worried about how can I get my local grocer, my departmental store just about a kilometer from my residence. How do I get him to use e-commerce to have him deliver the stuff that I want for basic everyday groceries and condiments, right? So we're back to basics, right? And we've also realized that this basic need, whether it's healthcare, whether it's easy accessible learning, whether it's access to e-commerce digital capabilities for not just the big baskets and for e-commerce, why not every retailer have access to these kinds of technology capabilities? Today, those needs have now become so important. They're actually much larger in terms of a market opportunity than all of those opportunities we've always fancied when it comes to luxurious products and luxury services and so on and so forth, right? So that's the back to basics part of the opportunity. The next is for us to be able to solve these problems. The solutions can come from any one of us, right? So it's no longer, it really is a flat world when it comes to innovations, right? Because the persons who are facing these problems are most likely to come up with the most effective solutions, right? So it is democratizing in that sense, right? All of us can start becoming problem solvers, and anyone out there with a good idea has to be given a chance. And we need local solutions. We can't keep depending on imported technologies and imported solutions. We have to start fending for ourselves, because what you see, just like our country, other countries have also started closing their doors now. They're all putting what are called these iron curtains, right? So it's not just Atmanirbhar Bharat, it's possibly Atmanirbhar every single country, right? So we need to look at indigenous innovation, and COVID has accelerated us into that kind of a moment, right? Then we've seen ourselves very open to change. We find ourselves open to new things. We're willing to try things out, right? So naturally, the barriers that are usually faced by innovators in terms of getting their innovative solutions, innovative products, innovative processes adopted, those barriers are getting busted, right? So there are reduced barriers to adoption, very reduced barriers to change, and so on. And let's look at the most important aspect, which is the impact on the economy, particularly unemployment, right? So that's a huge, huge, huge challenge, and it's also a huge opportunity, right? So how do we really look at these various aspects of opportunities which actually existed, right? They were all around us, right? But thanks to COVID, they've been brought to the surface. Not just to the surface, we've been hit by a fast-moving train in terms of how these opportunities have become the most important now for us in these unprecedented times. So what do we need? What do we need to translate these opportunities into realities, right? What do we need to exploit these opportunities? Who do we need? It's not just what, right? It's who do we need, right? So we need innovators, we need problem solvers, we need change agents, we need entrepreneurs, we need visionaries, right? But before that, right, let's look at other aspects of the Indian economy post-COVID-19. It's very clear that for India as a country to emerge from the COVID-19 distress, from the crisis, and for us to be able to exploit the kind of opportunities that I started talking about, there's more to come, by the way, we need to foster innovation, we need to foster technology, and we need to foster entrepreneurs. It's very clear, right? We can't expect engineers to come out of graduation anymore and think about finding a job. We don't need job seekers, we need job providers, job creators, right? We don't just need engineers to come in and say, yeah, I've got some skills. Can I go to the industry? Can I do some meaningful work? Can I earn a livelihood? No. We need people who actually can look for problems, find solutions, and translate those solutions into deployable solutions, into commercial products, into successful businesses, and build companies, and so on and so forth, right? So there again, we need all of these people, right? I'll let the joke sink in. I'll let you people watch this cartoon for yourself, right? Yeah. That's how important digital transformation has become now. And in just a matter of 2 months today, right? 2-3 months back, I know what the situation was because we've been actively looking at industrial innovation activities where we're trying to connect startups who are doing industrial deep tech solutions using AI, IoT, robotics, AR, VR, 3D printing, digital manufacturing, and connected manufacturing, and all of those technologies. We are trying to, as an incubator, we're trying to connect those startups with those innovative ideas and technologies. We're trying to connect them to companies who need these digital transformation solutions. And just 2 months back, we know how those discussions were, right? People were not wanting to give it the due importance. People were basically saying, yeah, but what's the big deal? You know, that's not the most important problem for me to solve. I want to get my orders for the next quarter, for the next year. I want to improve quality. I want to stop being dependent on manpower of a certain type. I want to worry about subsidies coming from the government, tax rebates, right? They were only talking about those things. But today, you don't have an excuse. You're literally dead. If you don't think about digital transformation, and if you don't have a proper strategy, and if you don't have a clear roadmap in terms of what solutions at what stage will you be implementing, what specific outcomes based on digital transformation that you would want to achieve, what goals, and if you don't have a time for it, if you don't have a budget for it, if you don't have the right steps taken to implement those strategies and to measure your progress, whether you are a hospital, whether you are an academic institution, whether you are a factory, whether you are a fintech company, whatever it is, right? Whoever you are, right? If you don't take necessary digital transformation steps, then it's going to be just like that, right? There is this big, huge cannonball that's waiting to come and sweep us away to oblivion, right? Now, who's going to help us exploit this opportunity? Who do we need? Innovators, problem solvers, change agents, entrepreneurs, visionaries. Let's look at healthcare in particular, right? If you look at all of these aspects, if you look at all of these themes under healthcare, broadly, they would fall under digital transformation. They would fall under making healthcare more inclusive. They will talk about making diagnostics more affordable, more available. They'll talk about reducing the cost of healthcare. They'll talk about improving the efficiency of healthcare, health delivery in, let's say, remote corners of the country. They will talk about the state of the public health infrastructure, right? So these are normal problems. They've always been there, right? But thanks to COVID, healthcare has become a national priority. It's as important as defense. It's as important as space, right? Every central government department related to health, every state government related to health, private sector, civic society, all of us are now worried what's going to happen to our healthcare system if this pandemic becomes even bigger and even bigger a problem. We don't know, right? Whether do we have enough beds? Do we have enough care providers? Do we have enough diagnostic equipment? Do we have enough ventilators, right? Every aspect of the healthcare system, the process has come under question, whether it's manpower, whether it's technology, whether it's inventory, whether it's policies, every aspect of it has come under question. So clearly, this is the right time to look at coming up with an innovative solution to solve many of those healthcare sector related problems, right? So this is a huge opportunity, and who's going to do this? Innovators, problem solvers, change agents, entrepreneurs, visionaries, right? Let's move on to factories. I started talking about why digital transformation is important for factories. We know what COVID did. The most important impact of COVID on factories is that the worker class, right, have just started leaving. I know, sitting in Coimbatore, knowing what's happening in Chennai, we know the thousands and thousands of migrant workers who are leaving. They're getting to trains, buses, lorries, whatever they get. They're even walking, cycling. They're going back to their home states. They're coming from usually the north states, so they're all going away. I'm sure parts of Gujarat, maybe Rajkot, maybe Surat, is also seeing a whole exodus of migrant laborers, workers who are going back to their native places, right? So that's going to become a huge problem for the factories, because now, after lockdown has eased, the factory promoters are coming back, they're opening up their factories, but they're finding that they only have 5-10% of workers available. Now, how do you get your factory up and running? How do you get your machines operating? How do you do the manufacturing work? How do you produce inventory? All of those activities are now becoming extremely challenging. So naturally, this is a time when factories have to look at digital transformation, right? I'm not going to go into the details of each of these themes, but I'm sure you can understand that there are many facets to how we can transform the factories to become the factories of the future. And again, never miss a crisis. So if you know of factory promoters, you should go tell them, hey, you know what, you anyway don't have anything else to do, right? You might as well start figuring out how are you going to acquire technology, how are you going to transform your factory to a smart factory, to a future-ready factory. And who do we need to address that opportunity for digital transformation in factories? Innovators, problem solvers, change agents, entrepreneurs, agriculture, right? Now, what has changed in the last 1 week of the Indian agriculture sector? That change in the last 1 week is more than the last 70 years or so since we got independence, right? That's the quantum of change. That's the leap, at least in terms of the vision, in terms of the intent, in terms of the roadmap. That's the quantum leap that this country has seen in terms of unlocking the potential of the agri sector, right? Now, I spoke about factories, right? Now, there is something about factories which we have to keep in mind when we discuss agriculture sector, especially after the announcements that have been made last week, right? Now, you think about a factory, right? You have basically a manufacturing company, right? Now, what does the manufacturing company do? It decides which product it wants to manufacture, right? It decides what quality, it decides what are going to be the raw materials for manufacturing that product. It decides who the suppliers, vendors for those raw materials are going to be. It decides what price it will sell. It decides at what price to which market it will sell. The manufacturing company decides who the distributors are, who the retailers are, who the agents are. Everything is pretty much the decision of the promoter or the entrepreneur of that manufacturing company. So the manufacturing company, either as a company or the promoter of the company, they are in complete control of all of those decisions. So what do? They look at all of those ways in which they can maximize their revenues, they can maximize their profit, they can maximize their quality, they can maximize their brand equity, they can maximize their market share. So all of those maximization outcomes, they will make decisions that will help them achieve those outcomes. And to do that, they will buy equipment, they will acquire technology, they will develop in-house designs, they will do branding. All of those activities they will do because they are in control and they want to achieve even better and even better outcomes. That was never true with agriculture because the farmer was always told what to do. Right? The farmer, maybe there are some farmers, but that's like exceptional. Right? Maybe we're talking what, maybe 5% or even less number of farmers in a country like India can decide what they want to do. The rest of them are basically, at mercy. Right? They're at the mercy of many stakeholders, policies, subsidies, loans. They're at the mercy of the weather. They're at the mercy of the quality of the soil. They're at the mercy of the fertilizer company. Right? Across the board, the farmer, just like you think of this factory owner, the farmer, right, is a passive producer. He's not an active producer. He's not able to. He can't decide what crop. He can't decide what price. He can't decide which market. He can't decide which season. None of that. He's got to go with what he's told, what he's forced upon, right? But that is going to change. Now that change is not going to happen tomorrow. It's possibly going to happen over the next, several years, if not decades. But in that context, if we start seeing these newer opportunities, integrating technology, using science, using data, right? Look at how much more productive these active farmers, active producers, farmers who are active producers will become, how much more successful they will be with their farming, with their output, with their profits, with their quality, right? Because they are now they're going to be in control of their destiny. They can decide what to acquire, what technology to use. So that's the potential that we have unlocked in this country by opening up and deregulating the agriculture sector, right? Now, who's going to exploit that opportunity? Who's going to transform that vision to reality? Who do we need? Innovators, problem solvers, change agents, entrepreneurs, visionaries, right? But what is the output of our higher technical education sector as it stands today? What is this sector putting out? Engineers, actually engineering graduates, let's be clear. And I'm one, by the way, right? I don't think I was ever, or even now, a good engineer. I graduated with an engineering degree exactly 20 years ago, almost to this date, right? And yeah, but I can't do really good engineering work, right? And job seekers. But what do we need? And that's what we've been discussing so far. That's the opportunity. And for us to exploit that opportunity, we need innovators, problem solvers, change agents, entrepreneurs, visionaries. So what are we expecting the academic system to do? What are we expecting the higher technical education sector to do? Is to ask those why not questions. Why not anything? To make sure that we go from producing engineers, graduates, job seekers to these kinds of people on whom the country is going to rely to bring the vision for our future to a reality. And that's the why of this whole topic. So let's go back and look at the why. I said I'm going to talk about two parts, right? I'm going to talk about why do we have to foster technology, innovation, entrepreneurship ecosystem in higher technical education or in academia. Why? This is why. Why? Because we need to produce these kinds of people right at the time when they come out of the education system. That's what the country needs today. So how do we go about it? That's the next part of it. But before we get into the strategy, I thought it's important for us to understand what really innovation is. In its most practical form, in its most easy to understand form, in a form that a third year or a final year or a second year technical education student will find that understanding of innovation more practical, more actionable. Something that will give you the confidence that you can do it yourself. You can do it too, and you can do it yourself. Let's try to see if we can come up with that definition for innovation. And what is that definition? Innovation is about solving real world problems using technology. And when I say using technology, you can also include developing technology and then using technology or applying technology, or you can directly apply technology that is already available and you can use that technology to solve real world problems. And that solving of real world problems should lead to progress, should lead to change, should lead to prosperity, and ultimately profit. Right? That's innovation in a very simple nutshell. Is that something all of us are capable of doing? Absolutely. Right? What do we need? We need skills, we need guidance, we need some resources, we need funds, right? And we need hope, right? And if we have all of that, can we expect students, can we expect educators, can we expect researchers in the higher technical education ecosystem to become innovators in such large numbers that the country can truly transform into becoming the world's superpower? Now, traditionally, how we look at this entrepreneurship, right? When we talk about entrepreneurship, especially even within the context of academic education, we think of this one big leap. I come up with an idea and I'm already thinking whether this idea will become the next $1 million product or a $1 billion company. And everybody around me is also expecting the same thing. If I go to a forum where there are some, let's say, investors and some mentors and some experts, and I put my idea forth to them, they're also saying, hey, yeah, but is this going to become huge? Is this going to become a unicorn? Is this going to become a market leader, right? Is this going to become a 100 crore company? So the expectations, the bar is always set very high. I'm not saying set lower bars, but I'm saying be contextual, right? In the context of student innovators, in the context of innovation that can happen inside academic institutions, how should we really look at this context? What should be the bar? Where should we set the bar? What should be our aspirations? That's what I want to talk about. So this big leap, one big leap never works. What we've instead seen is that if you actually look at the very process of how you go from an idea to an enterprise, it basically goes through these 4 stages. So you come up with a problem that you think is worth solving. You validate the problem. You really understand how the necessity of the problem, the severity, and you understand the significance of solving that problem. You understand all of that, and then you're trying to create a solution using technology, using creative design. You're building a solution to solve that problem, and you come up with a prototype to basically prove to the world that, hey, I have a solution to solve this problem, and you're getting that prototype to be used by your target users, your target customers, and they're giving you feedback that, yes, this solves my problem, and I'm willing to pay a price for buying that solution in the future, right? That's essentially what we're trying to do in that problem to prototype step. And then you're trying to convert that into a product, you're trying to convert that into a company, manufacture and sell more of that product, trying to generate revenues, trying to make profit, and then see if you can just go bigger and bigger and become even bigger company as you do that, right? So essentially, this initial phase, this going from a problem to a prototype, is innovation, right? And what happens next is entrepreneurship. So it's not a good thing to do if we expect this entire process to be seen as one big leap. If we can see these as two stages, then it's extremely practical to see if the stage one can be accomplished before technical students graduate from their respective degree programs. Which means if you can become an innovator before you graduate, it's a big deal. And we can hope that if you have the passion and the vision to carry forward, then you can become an entrepreneur after you graduate. Right? So it's not about just seeing those few people here or there inside academic institutions who have the natural flair, to constantly keep tinkering with things, building things, to take problems, to try creative solutions, innovative solutions to solve those problems. That is always happening. I'm sure even in your own colleges, you know of boys and girls who keep doing that without any formal support or intervention or a program or a course from the college or from the university. All of us know of many of those students in pockets who are doing that. But what I'm talking about is how do we mainstream this? How do we get everyone in technical education, every student, every educator in technical education to have a real shot at innovation? That's what we're talking about here, right? So our goal in that sense, right, is to see if we can get this first step done before you graduate from your higher technical education degree. And what we mean by innovations, I said I'm going to define innovation in a practical sense, the output of this innovation process, right? We always think in terms of, okay, there is a process, what's the output of that process? So if you're going from problem to this prototype, what is the output? We're basically expecting that if you can take a problem and you can build a solution which is useful to someone, and that someone is what we call your customer, and it's usable, which means you don't have to go and demo that all the time. It's something that's ready for your customer to use it on his own and to be able to solve the problem and to be able to derive the benefit or the gains or experience the gains. So it's not only useful, it's also usable. Second, related, it's deployable, which means that it can become a permanent solution. It's not a toy. It's not a lab proof of concept, right? It's something that you actually can put it out there and say, yeah, this solution can be permanent. So it's what we call deployable. And it's technically feasible, which means it will have to work, right? So if we can think of these as the attributes of what we expect in terms of the output of the innovation process, then this is something that is absolutely doable within the context of higher technical education. Has this been done? Let's talk about some examples. I've been, talking way up in the air. Let's descend to the ground level and actually look at the reality. The reality is that yes, this is absolutely doable, and I'm going to show you a quick set of innovations which have been done by students during their engineering, science, technology degree programs. When they went through the program that we offer through Forge, they were able to take up real-world problems from the industry, from the from defense, from civil society, and they were able to come up with solutions, and they were able to make them deployable, right? And what you're seeing, and some of these examples are exactly that. I'm not going to go into the details of it. I'm running a little short of time, so I'm just going to skip through real fast, right? Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, how do we implement this kind of a innovation course? How do we make this innovation activity mainstreamed within the academic curriculum? Because we're talking scale, right? And I'm sure all of you can understand that if you have to do something within the academic system, it needs to be structured, it needs to be properly defined, because it can't just be some ad hoc random activities here or there. Everything needs to be properly done. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be evaluated from time to time. It needs to be managed, monitored, reported. So we need something in a more structured form, which can get embedded into the academic curriculum, which is when it will gain that significance and the sanctity. Otherwise, it will become random acts here or there, right? So that is a very important thing. Only then this will scale up. Only then we will have hundreds, if not thousands of students and educators engaging in innovation activities within our academic institutions. So the answer to that is what we call in Forge the innovation practicum. So just like we have the academic curriculum, which is largely learning concepts, learning language through lectures, through practical laboratory sessions, through exams, and through certain other blended learning models. All of that is what we call the academic curriculum or the engineering, technology, science curriculum. This is practical. This is front and center, in fact, only doing. So you learn by doing. You learn technology by applying technology, right? And everything around this practicum is what you do, right? Whether it's the question of what technology you learn, what science you learn, everything is evaluated, assessed on the basis of what you can create out of it. What problem can you solve? How have you solved that problem? What can you demonstrate to say that I have solved that problem, right? So everything is output based. Everything is outcome based. It's not input based. I spend 45 hours attending to lectures, so yeah, I get so many credits. No, it doesn't work like that, right? I scored so many marks in an exam, so I wrote so many answers in an exam, so I got so many marks. No, that's input based, right? What we're talking about is an output outcome based process. That's the innovation practicum. These are the various attributes of this practicum. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but this is something that you can look through at a later stage. But essentially what we're trying to say is, how do we bring the real process of innovation into the course? So that the way okay, let me ask this question. If let's say you want to learn basketball, will you take a 3-credit course in basketball? No, you won't, right? You will basically, go out and play. Simple, right? Now, that's the kind of approach, right? So we're not looking at making this an academic process. We're trying to make this a process of doing things, right? So all of these attributes that you have on the slide about this innovation practicum is exactly that. This is learning basketball by playing basketball. So this is learning to do innovation by innovating. What are all the attributes that have to come together for that to happen? That's what this slide really talks about, right? Now, in terms of the program structure, right? And once again, let me go back to put the emphasis on the fact that we don't want just a few students to do this. We want any institution, whether you have 500 students, you have 5,000 students, you should be able to find a way in which this innovation practicum is integrated into your academic curriculum, academic structure, so that every single student can actually benefit. And I'm very happy and very glad to know that the iHub initiative of Government of Gujarat has created, I believe, 15 to 20 such centers in different parts of the state. I'm assuming all of them are attached to specific institutions, and in each of those institutions, in each of the centers, they have created the physical facilities and the technical infrastructure and other resources, mentors and experts and other programs, learning materials, curriculum, and so on and so forth, so that this kind of innovation activity is scaled up throughout the length and breadth of the state. This is brilliant, right? And we've not seen such a state, promoted model of this scale, of this rigor, of this depth in our state. So to that extent, I really envy Gujarat and the people of Gujarat. We don't have those kinds of programs here. But essentially what I want to talk through this slide is, if you look at it across the 4 years, assuming a 4-year technical degree, In each year, there is a certain set of interventions that builds up towards the final, more complex stages. So we start year one with engineering sprints, innovation sprints. Year two focus on design sprints and ideation sprints. And through these sprints, what we're doing is we're getting students to learn the basic skills, tools, techniques that go into innovation, right? Everything from engineering fundamentals to technology fundamentals to the principles of design thinking, the principles of creative design, right? How do you ideate? How do you go through a process of managing risks attached to translating an innovative idea into a real world solution, ready for market, ready for commercial launch? All of those aspects, there is some very proven, very popular models, frameworks. That is what we get them to learn en masse, right? So this is every last student in an institution has to have the opportunity to learn these skills and competencies in the first and in the second year. And then we look at a funnel kind of an approach, right? So from that, let's say 2,000 students in a particular institution, how do we get some of them who have shown probably more interest, who have absorbed these skills in a much better way, who have a vision for solving a certain problem or for creating a new technology or a new product? Naturally, those numbers will be less than the superset of all students in a particular institution. So we take them and then we put them through the innovation fellowship in the third year. And in the final year, they go through an internship process or an incubation process, right? Typically, internship here refers to getting them to actually work for real world startups, where the kind of technologies or solutions they built in the third year is actually something very relevant to the technology or product that the startup is looking to commercialize in the market. So it becomes a natural fit for those students to work with that startup as an intern. Or they can actually take it up as an incubation exercise and convert that prototype into a full-fledged product, build a company. So the time they're ready to graduate, they're actually not just an innovator, they have their own company. They've already become an entrepreneur, right? Beyond this, we also have a 2-year postgraduate diploma in management program on innovation, entrepreneurship, and venture development. This is approved by MHRD, AICTE, and my good friend Hiranmai is on the committee. This is a huge opportunity for us to bring up and show a model where you actually can take real world startups to go through 2 years of this program. And it takes 2 years to build a successful idea into a technology, into a innovative product, to commercialize the product, and to be able to build a company and to grow that company. It takes 2 years. And there's phenomenal learning in that process. So AICTE and MHRD had that vision that why can't we have that kind of a learning process supported with incubators, and they extended us the opportunity to do that. And what we essentially do in those 2 years is we get the startup founders or the innovators who are joining the course to go through these 4 stages in that typical journey from an idea to an enterprise. And in this journey, there are so many things to learn. There are lots of learning in terms of skills, in terms of competencies, in terms of knowledge, and also wisdom that you gain through experience. A lot of that is much more than even a full-fledged MBA, because you're doing this by practice, right? So we're trying to bring that into this 2-year format and give them a degree or a diploma at the end of these 2 years, so that those startup founders have been recognized for the amount of learning and development and growth that they have achieved in those 2 years, not ignoring what they've actually achieved on the front of innovation, venture development, company creation, company building, and so on and so forth, right? So that's another aspect of this innovation practicum that I wanted to bring about. So in summary, what we think about, in fact, this is more like a mantra that we follow here in Forge: innovation for employability, innovation for skills enhancement leads to innovation for entrepreneurship, right? So today, if I talk to students and say, hey, why you have to innovate? Because you have to become an entrepreneur. It may not be very appealing, because entrepreneur as an outcome is not very appealing, right? Because it's usually misunderstood with respect to that being a very risky activity. My parents will not accept me to become an entrepreneur. They want me to go and work and become a professional, build a career in some sector, right? So we're not trying to do that. What we're trying to say is, we're trying to tell them, hey, can you innovate to boost your skills? Can you innovate to become more employable? And what we believe is that when they start doing that, it emerges from within that, oh my God, not only can I become an innovator, but I actually can transform this into something much bigger. I actually can become an entrepreneur. So that discovery, that self-discovery happens through this process. So we say, come, learn skills by doing, by solving problems. And in that process, we allow those students to discover the hidden entrepreneur, the hidden visionary, the hidden change agent within them. And that's the real beautiful outcome that we've all experienced, and we've seen so many students go through this process for the last 3 years or so. So that's the innovation practicum at Forge. I'm already out of time, so I'm going to stop here and possibly take some questions, and then maybe go forward. I'll quickly, maybe I'll just do that. Maybe I'll pause here, and I'll see if there are questions that I can take. I'm sorry, Zara, I over.
So it's perfectly fine. It was very inspiring to all the faculties, considering they are from higher education, and the way you explained the entire how we can change the curriculum, that was really insightful. So we have few questions, sir. One question coming from Facebook is that he's a literature student. So we have several faculties also here who are from the higher education, from the BSc, BCom colleges. So how do they innovate or change the mindset of those students who are not in the technical domain?
Sure. So there are two parts to it. One, if I have to talk from my experience, we have definitely covered science, technology, and engineering streams. We've not had a chance at, we've not had a shot at commerce or arts students. We've not had a shot because naturally we're looking at sort of technology-oriented innovation. So we assume that there is some kind of a science background, engineering background to the whole problem solving and innovation exercise. So we haven't done that, but I believe the innovations are definitely needed in non-technology areas as well, right? So there could be innovations in terms of business process innovations, there could be innovations in terms of business model innovations, right? And that's one. The second aspect is that in most cases, and we've known some very popular, very famous entrepreneurs who are not technical people themselves, right? In the famous example I'm often told is Steve Jobs, right? He was not a technical engineer himself, but he had the vision for creating something that was way beyond what others could even think of, right? And then he was able to bring these other technically competent engineers and designers to help him translate that vision into reality, that design into reality, right? So I'm sure there are those hidden gems among our students who are in, let's say, commerce areas or arts areas. So we need to find a way to get them to come and be involved in the kind of innovation activities that we are doing. We've not done that, but maybe that's something I will try. And we're in the why not context, right? So why not try to bring commerce and art students to work along with science and engineering students to see if something even more magical can come out of it. We'll definitely give that a shot.
Thank you, sir. One more question is how the scenario in the agricultural sector going to change, considering in the COVID-19 locomotive issue, other kinds of food and the supply chain, and how is that going to change in the next post-COVID-19? What will be the new normal?
Sure. I think there are many possibilities, right? One thing we will see for sure in the very immediate term is that there is going to be a lot more of uptake of modern science and technology-based solutions, right? We will definitely find that farmers will be open to saying, okay, now that I have the freedom to do something, can I start looking at things in a more scientific manner, right? That is one possibility. The second area that I often think about is the whole supply chain beyond the farm, right? So if you look at the farm, they call it the farm to fridge, right? Or the farm to store, right? If you look at those aspects, the entire chain is broken. There are states where you have huge underutilized capacity for cold storage, and there are states where you don't have basic storage, cold storage mechanisms, right? So some of those capabilities when it comes to preserving the produce from the farms to the point where they're purchased or to the point where they are consumed. I think a lot of those broken systems, inefficient systems can be solved only with technology, right? So naturally, this opening up of the sector is going to bring out those possibilities. People will. So what happens when you deregulate a sector? So we call it the free market forces, right? So the free market forces is a freer movement of ideas, funds, resources, right? And ideas translating into outcomes, right? Money going behind worthy ideas, and those worthy ideas translating some, solving some problems. So that's what we call free market forces, because nobody is restricting everything, right? So naturally, I would expect a lot more of those to happen in the very immediate term. In the long term, I don't know, maybe a few years from now, we'll definitely see more farm automation being spoken about, right? But there's also the risk of how many of these migrant laborers who are going back to those native states, because they're all basically going back to an agricultural livelihood, right? I'm sure their parents are still farmers or they're doing farming, right? So I don't know what's that going to have in terms of an effect on the excess amount of labor that is available in those places. So unless there is some parallel manufacturing activity that really picks up in those places, we're going to find a lot of unemployed youth, right? So is all of that unemployed youth going to be put into the farmland for farming purposes? Maybe. Then naturally, technology uptake will be slowed down. Automation, agricultural automation, implements, and some of those things will definitely get slowed down. One. Second possibility is there could be a huge upsurge in export of agricultural produce, because other countries are now struggling to fix their broken food supply chains. So maybe that extra demand will sort of meet the extra labor supply and maybe create some new normal, which I'm not able to predict, but maybe the next 1 year we'll have some serious discussions on the agri sector.
Thank you so much, sir. So one question is from a faculty who's asking that sometimes the students confuse between an innovation and an enterprise. So they come up with a product and they want to go ahead with the startup. So how should they guide the students in that regard?
Okay. It's basically it's a logical sequence of certain steps, and whenever a process is a logical sequence of steps, you can't put later stage steps in front of earlier steps, right? So you have to allow that sequence of steps to happen in a certain logical manner, right? So what do I mean by that? First comes innovation, right? Which is, let's first build a solution, right? For solving a problem for a particular customer, and let's prove that the particular solution that we come up with is acceptable to that customer as a permanent solution, and the customer is willing to pay for it. Let's first get to that logical milestone, right? Because if you don't get to that logical milestone, then you're assuming that this product will become successful, this product will sell at this price, there will be so many customers, this is the market share, this will be the revenues, profits. That entire business plan that is built is like a fairy tale, right? There is absolutely no truth to it. It's like those fancy stories that I tell my daughter every single evening to just put her to sleep, right? So it's that kind of fairy tales that we come up with. Now that stage comes later. So first, if you can get your student to say, okay, in the next 3 months, can I find out who my target customers are. Do I really understand their problem very clearly? Can I build a solution for that? And can I prove that this solution is acceptable? They're willing to pay this price. Let's have that validation. Let's have that evidence. And when we have that, let's start thinking, okay, how can I build this into a full-fledged business, right? So that logical separation, I think, is very important. And educators have to understand these aspects more clearly, because you are the first point of contact for students who come up with innovative ideas, right? So that interaction is very important. I call it the moment of truth, right? When a student comes up to a faculty and says, hey, I have this idea, that interaction is got to be very effective, right? So the faculty has to think about, okay, should I over glorify the idea, right? And make them believe that, oh my God, this is the next Bill Gates waiting to happen, right? Or do I just go hit him so hard that he completely loses all the passion and the motivation he has or she has about that particular idea? Both of those extremes are wrong, right? You got to find the right middle path, which is to really understand, okay, what kind of an idea, what are the risks, what kind of evidence is needed to accept that this innovation will have a commercial prospect, will have a business prospect. That kind of conversation is what is needed between the mentors and the students. And we have a lot of help for that, right? So reach out to us. We have a lot of tools, techniques that we've created, which is very easy to understand and very easy to apply. And all of them can play a major role in helping you become effective mentors for your student innovators.